So you guys are fourth years, right? So next year I know one, okay, two phases. Yeah. So probably you go to the industry next year, right? Right. Anyone have any idea about the UX? What is UX? Huh? Any idea? Huh? Okay, user experience. Anything else? Any detailed explanation? So you guys did many projects, right, over the last 3 years. You have to design interfaces, you have to do many softwares, and you have to write some reports, so many reports and many presentations. Right? All right. Before I'm going to start, I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Dakshika Jayathilaka, and currently working at WSO2. I'm the team lead SSC at WSO2 UX team. And previously, actually I studied from here. So I graduated, completed my fourth year at around 2012, 2011 actually. So all these places are not a new place. It's the same place that we have lectures, but few monitors and a few arrangements are different. Other things are almost same. And at that time, we had a subject called HCI, Human Computer Interaction, and also did that subject. And so after that, we realized, okay, there's something in this subject, and I choose that subject as my career, right? So first I need to thank to Sir Kuriga sir and to give this sort of insight in that year. I think we had that subject in third year. So let's start. UX for software engineers. So do you guys know about this, right? French fries. Anyone who doesn't know about this, please raise hand. Everyone knows, so no. French fries, alright, okay. So then you know this, something in this side. Sauce bottle, right? See, just imagine the experience that you had when you are at maybe KFC or Domino's or whatever the place, when you are taking a French fries and a sauce, and you want to pour some sauce into the French fries, right? What do you think? What is your experience? How was it? Guys, you have to speak, right? This is fourth year, not second year. Or usually in first year we don't speak, and second year that's okay. But third year at least you have to interact with the lecturers, right? Fourth year definitely you have to do that, right? Otherwise no point of doing this sort of lectures. So what is your experience? Can someone explain? How was it? Huh? Over? I think we are good at that time. When we are fourth year, usually we ask many questions from the lecturer, and when it's an industry person, definitely we'll ask questions. At least we can answer the question. No idea? Right. So it's really hard to pour, right? If you have some sort of glass bottle, right? This sort of glass bottle, and when you are trying to pour, it's really hard, right? It's really hard to pour more bit of sauce into your dish, right? Okay, now we'll think it in a different way. Now this is the old bottle, and this is the new bottle that they designed. So in the right hand side, that's about designing a product, right? Which means when you want to store sauce, right? We just design a bottle, right? Then you can fill the sauce into that, right? But they never think about the user, who's going to use it, right? They just design a bottle, design the product, right? Label it, yes, done, right? But when it comes to the user perspective, user point of view, right? When they want to pour some sauce into their French fries, it's really hard. So on the other hand, if you design the experience, if someone experienced that pattern, right? If someone experienced that bad experience, if someone had that, right? Then they will realize, okay, this is not the way of designing it, right? So probably you may have seen this bottle as well, right? No one? Anyone have experienced this one? It's on the right hand side, right? Okay, so that bottle usually comes as a plastic bottle, right? Then you can squeeze like this, right? You can easily pour the sauce into whatever the bun or anything, right? So this is the user experience. When you just think about designing something, you can grab the idea, okay, what are things that you need to establish that setup, right? And you just design something. But when it comes to the user experience, you need to think other way around. First, you need to put yourself into the customer's shoes, right? Then you can understand, okay, this is not the way of designing it. This is not the way of creating it, right? Every time when you are designing or developing or doing anything, this is not only for the software engineers, for anything. This is for everything, right? User experience is a very wide and vast area, right? This can be applicable for anything, not only for the software engineers, but for everybody, right? When you're doing something, you need to put your legs into customer shoes, right? Then you can realize, okay, what are their requirements, right? And how they actually behave when they are working with something. Probably within the software, maybe it's a mechanical thing, right? Or electrical thing, anything, right? Okay, so right. So next slide is actually taken from this UX client site. It shows how UX solves problem. This is a UX umbrella. So this design actually, this diagram created in 2011 by a person called Dan Wales, and he implies, okay, we need to incorporate few number of things to explain the usability or the user experience. So he mentioned we need to think about the visual design. So usually if we say UX, most of the time people think, okay, it's all about visual design, right? How we see something, right? But that's not the real truth, because it has to interact with some other aspect. Then the information architecture, how the information works, the similar concept in the content strategy, how we're pushing the content to the user, right? And the interaction design, how we interact with the system. Probably if it's a software, how user will interact, how to do the interaction with that particular system. Then the usability. You may know certain concept in usability, right? There are many concepts and the many research projects done by different researchers. Right? They identify, okay, there are certain aspects, there are certain psychological behaviors that people think and how they act within the different times and with the different software, so on. And the user research. The user research is another important part, because when we are thinking about the usability, we need to identify, okay, who are the users, right? Who are going to use this particular product, right? We need to identify, probably, I don't know whether you had subject called marketing or something like that, any marketing subject, no? Okay, so you need to identify your user group, probably particular that niche, right? So identifying that particular user group, and after that you are setting up your software, right? So you need to do a user research as well. So user experience design is a combination of all these aspects, right? They include everything. Human-computer interaction is a part of it, right? Interaction design, the human factors, industrial design, sound design, visual design, content, information, architecture. So this whole set is UX. So there's no direct definition saying, okay, this is the definition for UX. So different people define it in different way, including many different aspects, right? So again, this is another abstract way of seeing the user experience. But if you think about the industry now, so UX actually, before it comes to the UX, people say, okay, we have something called HCI. When we are learning at UCSC, we had a course called HCI, Human-Computer Interaction, and after that, when we go to the industry, the term was UX. But probably after next year, the UX term will go away, and they will say CX. CX means the customer experience. So that is the new trend that going forward, right? So every time, the core concepts are same. Core concepts are same because we are human, right? We all are human. So core concept never change. Things may get different depending on the technology, depending on the evolution that we are going forward, right? So, but the core concept will be same. So you need to understand what is the differences between this different concept, why we are saying like that, to so on, right? So there's another confusion. Most of the time people think UX as a UI thing. If someone say, actually, honestly speaking, when I am joined to WSO2, there was no UX team, right? At that time, when I say, okay, we need to establish a UX team, you guys are UI person, right? They just say, okay, UI person. What is the responsibility of UI person? Anyone know? Any idea? UI person?
Creating user interface.
Okay, creating user interface, right? Most of the time they think those buggers as a CSS people, right? They name those people as CXS guys, right? Most of the organization, they identify UI people as like that, or the Photoshop guy. So definition for UI person, they can do the Photoshop well and they can do the CSS well. That's it, right? So I did my special here, fourth year course, and I went to the when I joined to the UCS WSO2, they think as the same way, right? That because most of the organization doesn't aware about this concept, right? But if you think about the real UI UX differences, so this UI is just a tip of iceberg, right? UI is a small part of it. The whole set is unnamed, right? So if we do a small comparison, fortunately, try to hide this. Not sure how we can hide this. You can read it, right? So I'll read them out. So first say the field research, face-to-face interviewing, creation, user test, gathering evidence and statistics, creating personas, product design, feature writing, requirement writing, interaction design, information architecture, usability, prototype, then interface design and the visual design. So those are the only two aspects when categorized under UI, right? But when you say UX in industry, people only think about these two aspects. They can create interfaces and the visual design. Basically Photoshop and the CSS. Right? That's how industry people see this UX in Sri Lanka, not in other countries, but in Sri Lanka. Right? So we need to rethink about this. Right? So we need to clearly identify differentiation between the UI and the user experience, UX. Right? Okay. So they're saying, say, know the user, you are not the user. That's an important point. So most of the time, if you are a software engineer, right, you may follow so many concept, algorithms, sorting algorithm, many stuff, right? Many technical stuff and the technical jargon. So people think, okay, we know the technical stuff, then we can easily do this UX, right? And you guys creating something that you can use. You definitely create something that you can use. But if you give that to some other person, right, probably not within your scope, maybe to your cousin or the relation, right? They can't identify, okay, why you need this software or how to operate this. They can't handle it, right? But you are saying, okay, but then there's a small button, then you can click there and you can fill this form out and save it, right? But in practically, if someone try to fill a small form, right, it's really hard. Why? Probably it will have more than 20 fields and many validations are there, but there's no error showing underneath, right? Once you press save, nothing appears, but in the console or the debug logs, you can see the error, right? And the formatting issues, you never think about it because you know your code well, right? You know the best way of filling that form, but the users are really different. They are not thinking in your pattern, right? They have different mindset. Probably they are in different industries, right? They can't realize how to fill that small form, right? So most of the time, we never think about the users, right? So we just think about ourselves and creating something. But when you are doing something, you really need to think about the users, right? And how they act on different interface or different approach. It's not only about the interface design. Imagine if you are software having a config file. So config file also has to have user experience, right? Most of the time, the developers don't think about that, right? They're just putting all the config into single file and they say, okay, that is okay because only developer use it. Yes, again, developer is a human, right? They need to think about that configurations, right? Okay, let me explain why. So, because we all are human, right? So, this person, this Homo sapien, is a developer and this person is a user. The same person is a designer, and he is a manager, researcher, and he can play many roles. So if you think about all those people, they have this small thing. I don't know the size of it, but there's something like this, right? So our brains work in same way, similar way, right? So, but probably most of the time we are thinking, okay, we are fourth years and third years are, they don't have that much of brain power. We are totally different, right? That's why we selected the fourth year and we are doing softwares better than them. Not really, right? And you may think, okay, those uneducated people doesn't have this much of brain power, and we can do something for them. But actually, they can do something better than you guys, because you never think this sharing concept. We, all of us, all the humans sharing same similar capabilities and the limitation. That is really important. Limitations and the capabilities, two different things, right? When you are doing something, you need to identify these limitations and the capabilities this brain has, right? Okay. So there's a concept called UX psychology. Psychology. Do you guys have a subject called psychology? At that time we had a subject called psychology. No?
We have unfortunately dropped that.
Okay. Again, that's unfortunate. Because that subject teach hell of a lot about the concept that you need to use within this area. Right? It will teach how people think, how people act differently in different situations. So you need to understand psychology, human psychology. So in terms of UX, we have a concept called UX psychology to identify how people behave with the softwares or the systems that we are creating. Right? So that's all about the UX psychology. So let me take some examples. So we'll see how people see certain stuff, right? So this concept saying what you see isn't what your brain gets. What you see isn't what your brain gets. We'll take example and see. Okay. So what you can see here. Guys, please speak. Huh? Step 4 is now. Right? Okay. Now, think about this. Stop is worn out. So if I show the previous one, you guys said stop 4 is now, and the next one stop 4 is now. So what is the difference? So if you think about our brains, half of the brain resources are dedicated to seeing things and the interpretation. Half of the brain cells. Right? So when you see something, right? So basically brain creates a shortcut. Brains automatically create shortcut. That's why I said all humans sharing same capabilities and the limitations. Right? If you are a human, right? I don't know, there may be exceptional cases, right? But usually your brain automatically creates shortcut. You didn't want to think even. Right? So interpretation happens like that. Okay. So what happens here? So there are two rows, two columns. So that is a separation, right? And again, there is a color aspect. The color automatically creates a shortcut in your brain. The color emphasize and say, okay, you have to read this in this way. And you have to read this in that way. So brain automatically does that. You didn't want to think even. Nothing. Okay. So let me show a real world example. Yeah, everyone knows how to create a table, right? Probably in first year we are having HTML, because I'm not sure whether now is it still there, HTML stuff. Probably you know how to create a table, right? Table tag. So and after that, when you are searching or googling, you may have seen many different styles applies within the table, right? Then if you feel okay, this is much comfortable, you just copy paste those stuff and putting into your project. But you need to identify and understand why we use colors in these columns, why we use different lines in this table. So that is the concept. That is the difference how we think and how we see the stuff, right? So that's why we are differentiating table rows or the columns to highlight certain stuff. If you want to focus certain things, we do highlighting in different columns, maybe in the rows, right? And for the clarity, then you can easily read the stuff. And all these horizontal and vertical lines to differentiate the different stuff, right? Okay, I'll show another example. So there's another concept, geom theory. So this used for the object recognition, right? So if you think about two icons on the top, right? And these are a little bit different. And if you think about the top two, all those icons created using geometric shape, circles, squares, like that. Right? So there's a theory called geom theory, which says when people see something, they will map all those icons or the shapes into the basic geometric shape. We recognize something using the basic geometric shape, right? So when you think about the iconography, right, icons, people usually use the shapes to create that. If you think about the flat designs, flat icons, if you heard that term before, flat designs basically create all the icons using geometric shapes. Google icons and many other vendor icons, right? They use the geometric shapes to create it. That's because our brain automatically picks the geometric basic shapes and putting into that, map it and recognize it. Right? If you think about the bottom stuff, again, sometimes ago we use those concepts. There's another big concept called skeuomorphism, right? Which says we can show this actual objects in the interfaces, right? So that is a different concept. So at that time we create this sort of icons, but now the recommendation is to use the geographic shapes to create your icons or the iconography, right? So then users will easily recognize the items. They can remember it well. And the next concept is people identify objects by recognizing patterns. Okay, I'll give another example. What is this? Can someone tell what is this? What you can see here. Huh? Guys, please speak. Huh? Yeah. Eight dots. What? You are in fourth year, right? Next year you have to go to the industry and do something. Then probably your manager will ask, okay, how you are doing something, and you have to explain it, right? Otherwise, probably you have to come to some sort of, you have to start your own company, probably startup, right? Okay. So probably you see 4 set of 2 dots each rather than 8 individual dots. Nobody will say these are 8 individual dots. There may be exceptional cases, right? But usually, in general, people say, okay, 4 set of 2 dots. Right? 4 set of 2 dots. Why? Our brain automatically think about the proximity. If certain things are closer, our brain think, okay, these are the one section, these are one thing, and these are another thing. Guys, don't watch too many TV series at night, then definitely you will fall asleep at this time. Right? So I can see some heads are going down. Don't do that. I know you can download many TV series from here, but don't watch at the night. Probably you can spend evening time to do that. Right? So this is another example, right? So we think about the proximity, how things close and how we can see those stuff. So I'll tell an example for the previous thing first. So if you think about the web page designs, most of the sites in the news site, right? You can see certain things are get isolated. Picture and some brief summary text, and there's a white space and next something like that, right? Just rewind something and see whether any site BBC or whatever the site, right? Most of the sites using this concept, right? I don't know whether they know it or without knowing it, they will use it. So this the grouping together and the white spacing. So there's a concept called active white spacing and a passive white space. Probably you may heard that concept, right? So using the active and the passive white spacing, we can clearly differentiate different stuff. If you see some site, then you will recognize, okay, this picture belongs to this particular news. The next picture belongs to next particular news, right? That's how we realize certain stuff, right? So those are the practical usage. You need to understand the practical usage, not only the theory. When you know the theory, you need to apply it, right? So think about that aspect. So next thing is the colors. So this diagram shows how colors used in different cultures. This is a very popular diagram used in the UX, right? So probably different colors. So this ABCD is here, ABCD, F, G, Western, Japanese, Hindu, American, Chinese, Asian, so on. And the 1 to 84, those are the, 1 to 30 is the emotions or the feeling. No, 84, up to 84 is the concepts, right? So I'll tell another example, then you will easily understand this. What do you think about the red color? If you see something in red, what is the feeling? Huh?
Danger.
Danger, warning, anything else? Huh? That's all, no. Is that all? Danger and warning? If someone wear a red something, then you will feel danger? Really? Huh? Guys, come on. 4th years, huh? So, red implies yes, danger, warning, yes, and it implies the emotional feeling like love, affection, right? Those feelings also there. But think about the contrast. Danger is in one end, love and affection is another end. But it represents by the same color. Valentine's Day, red, right? But we use the same color to show the danger. Right? Okay. So all these colors matters in different nations, different regions. So we'll take the same color. So we know, okay, red is good for highlight some danger. And do you remember something called Chinese dragons, Chinese hotels? What is the color that they use? Huh? Red. So in China, they are in that country, Chinese people, red represent the happiness. Right? For Chinese, red represents the happiness. So if you create a nice interface with a warning button with red color, right? What happens if you give that interface to Chinese people? Probably they will pick, because that is the happiness color for them. Right? So that's why you need to understand how color matters in different regions, different religions. Religion is another aspect. And for the different segmentations. That's why you need to clearly identify your users first. Right? So if you're creating an interface for Chinese people, be aware guys, don't put red as a warning. Definitely they will do that. They will click on that button. Right? I'll take another example. We'll take an example of Sri Lanka. Down within Sri Lanka, we'll take an example of Sri Lanka, then you can probably feel it. Right? If you have seen the dialogue banners, dialogue posters, places on Colombo and the Jaffna, do you guys have seen any difference between those? Huh? No? Jaffna Hindi na done nahi sila. How many are going to Jaffna first? Huh? Okay, few people. Have you guys noticed any difference in between those two cutouts? No? As software engineers, you need to see those differences. If you think about the designs, posters, cutouts that they place in Colombo or this area, is really different from that side. That because that Hindu, most of the time Jaffna people, they are Hindu people, right? Most of, right? And again they prefer little bit dark colors. If you think about the green, so I'm saying this is a green, right? But people have different concept of colors. I'm not going to differentiate those. Just imagine this is a green color something, right? The Colombo or the down south area, people recognize this as a green, okay, light green. They prefer to have this color. But if you think about same green in Jaffna, they prefer a little bit darker one. This is the preferred one. And same thing, if you think about the red, they prefer the darker version of it. Am I correct? Usually that happens. So if you think about all the billboards that Dialogue or any vendor creating, right, they think about those color aspect. They put this little bit darker color. Darker green. Right? So those people prefer that color. And religion wise, any Muslims here? Muslim? If you think about the religion, Muslim people again prefer that green. They used to wear the green, and when they are painting their houses, they use green. Right? That's their preference. So when you're creating something for a specific group or the people, you need to aware about that. And there's another set of colors, say neutral colors. So if you create something for general audience, for everyone, most of the time we are using neutral colors. Not any religion specific or the area specific colors. Right? So you guys need to think about color angles. Really, really important. It really matters. Right? If you are putting a banner, if you are creating an image, if you are creating an icon, you need to think about all those aspects. So this circle shows different regions and the color preferences for different angles. Right. So I'll share these slides with you guys, then you can refer it. So those are the real world examples. Okay. Let me take another example. Too many examples, huh? Yes, we need to identify why we need to have UX subject or the UX context. Right? That's why I'm emphasizing different aspects. So, as we identified, we have short-term memory. Right? Long-term memory, short-term memory. Short-term memory. Right? So, short-term memory is limited. Limited memory. So, there's a research done in 1956. They realized people remember only 4 items at once. People can remember only 4 items at once. Plus 2 minus 2. So that is the initial research result. And after that, in 86 and 2001, they changed this magical number in 4. They said, okay, 4 is the right number. So previously it identified actually not as a 4 but as 7. 7 plus 2 minus 2. And after that, they identified, okay, 4 is the optimal number. Okay. Just a concept, right? Just a theory. Now tell me the example. Anyone have any idea about why we use 4 items at once? Any idea? Any example? Any example? So remember, in our day-to-day life, we are facing all these examples, we've seen those examples, but we don't know what are the real concepts and why we are using those concepts. That is a problem. Okay, I'll tell the example. So if you think about the US phone numbers, probably you may have a big problem with this dash. When you first time see the US number, you wonder why we are having this separation in between those different numbers. In Sri Lanka, we say not 77 something. But in US, they have separation in between. They chunk items into different parts. Right? So they use maximum 4 numbers. Maximum 4. Last one is 4. Others are less than that. Because our short-term memory is limited. Our short-term memory is very limited. That's why we are using this pattern. Right? When you are telling a number to someone, don't tell 8 digits at once. At least break into pieces and tell. Chunk it. Then they can recognize or memorize it fast. I don't know, probably you have experience. If you call to someone and telling a number, if you say oh, no 77, 11 00, 911, anyone can remember that number? As a number. No 77, 11 00, 911. That's my mobile number. But nobody will remember it. Right? You can't memorize it. Because I said all the numbers at once. But if I say no 77, 11 00 911, now see the difference. So when you are creating something, when you are designing something, think about all those aspects. Right? Think about all this combination. So I am explaining different concepts, but you need to think about the combination of this. When you are developing software, you can't directly apply something, right? You can't directly apply one single thing into one interface or the software, maybe into the code. Right? But if you can remember all those concepts, you can create a great usable product. Okay, this actual graph they identified. So they draw a line here and say how people, the 75% of people recognize 4 items when they are using short-term memory. Right? I take another example. Probably you may have seen this. When you are creating a dashboard, I know people who are very experienced in creating dashboard. If you think about the dashboard, if you have seen any dashboard design, on the top of that page, you may have seen 4 blocks to show 4 different aspects that you want to show in the top or within the software. If it's a monitoring dashboard, think about the monitoring dashboard, right? So most of the time you can see 4 chunks because short-term memory can perceive 4 things maximum. That's why we are not embedding all those chunks in the main screen. When you are creating a dashboard, when you are creating interface, you need to think about this aspect. If you give more than 4, probably 5 is okay, but 6, 7, no, bad design. But without knowing, you are thinking, okay, I need to incorporate all those information at one screen, and you are putting everything in one screen. But that's not the actual case. Because all our human brains act the same way. Either you are a software engineer, either someone else. Right? So when you are creating something, when you are creating a design, when you are doing your design, you need to clearly understand the differences between this. Right. Another one. Okay. Too much of theory. There's a concept called progressive disclosure. Okay. Good name. Progressive disclosure. It's a show people what they need when they need it. Any idea? Show something if people want it, not in every time. Any example? How many of you using Gmail? 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 Everybody, right? You are getting a Gmail account, right? UCSC.edu something? No? Okay, at that time we had. Okay. So basically, Google Apps, most of the organizations use Google Apps nowadays, right? So Gmail is very popular. So Gmail applies this concept, progressive disclosing their interfaces. I'll show examples. This is my WSO2 account email. So you can see few action buttons here. Right? If you are not sure, just open your Gmail and see. You can see only few option buttons. One checkbox is there, and the drop down, and the refresh button, and the more. Nothing else. If you open your Gmail for the first time, not the first time, but when you go to the landing page, you can see something like this. Then, if you select it, if you select particular email, or maybe the multiple emails, you can see the next actions. Then this will change to remove labels, spamming, deleting, mark as read, and the categories, labels, and more. So I'll show both in one single screen, then you can easily identify. In first screen, you can only see one checkbox and refresh button, more, nothing else. But in here, down there, you can see many actions. Because I selected one particular mail. Think about this aspect. When you're going into the screen, you just want to skim through the email, just the subject, nothing else. So at that time, if you see all these icons, definitely you will get confused. Because at that time you didn't want to do anything. You just want to read the subject, just skimming. Right? But if you select something, selecting means probably you need to delete it, mark it as spam, or do a categorization or the labeling, some action. Right? So at that time, Gmail shows the next icons, next action button. So progressive disclosure is a concept that says we are showing things when the user needs to use it. Right? So when you are creating your interfaces, don't put all the actions at once at the first screen. Make them appear when they need it. Right? Then it will automatically become usable. Then people can easily recognize, okay, now the action buttons are changed, right? And automatically if you are selecting something, this will appear with some animated effect, right? Then user will automatically focus their eyes onto this part, right? That's how people use animation to show something. But in university time, we use that marquee or something to animate or just blinking something. No. Those are very old methods. Don't use them. Right? So, this is a really convenient for users. This is a very convenient approach when you are designing interface. Okay. This is another concept. People scan screens based on past experience and the expectation. Give me example. Experience and the expectation. When you are checking any software, when you are going to any website, people always think about this. People think about their past experience, right? And they have expectations. Anyone can explain an example? No? I don't know how you guys came to fourth grade.
Ideas, some ideas, Java has different ideas. So
Okay.
we see, but we download most of those.
Alright. Okay. He's saying when you are using any IDEs, right, they are downloading familiar ones. Okay. That because of the experience, right? Okay, maybe the expectations. I'll take a very simple example. Okay. Have you guys used any e-commerce site in Sri Lanka? Any e-commerce site? Any deal site? Rather than e-commerce, most of the time you used to visit to the deal site, right? Daily deals, my deal or my store, anything. I think there are tons of e-commerce sites now. So if you visit to any e-commerce site or the shopping cart, right? Most of the time you are looking for certain places. So if it's an e-commerce site, it's not an e-commerce site, but if you go to e-commerce site, where are you looking for the shopping cart? Where? Top right corner, right? And if you think about the logout button, where you automatically thinks it plays right hand corner, right? Top right hand corner. That's because of your past experience and the expectation. So usually, most of the users having pre-experience, right? So they have used certain similar system. They expect certain things are in place as similar way. They expect shopping cart on this side and the categorization on this side, left hand side, right? Or the top, right? And the quickly changing banners on the top to get that attraction, and you may think, okay, those are the top highlighted products or the best deals, but in sales terms those are not. But user point of view, we think those are the great deals, right? So every designer needs to understand those past experience, right? And the expectation, how people think about themselves, right? So when you are creating a design, interface or any software, you need to think about that. Not only for the interfaces, but also for the config files, as I mentioned before, right? When you are running a certain software, probably you need to store certain stuff, right? Probably in the database, again, right? How you keep the config files, how you give the permissions. So all these things are matter. Just end users, if you just creating something for the end users, yes, you need to only focus on the end user aspect. But if you create something for the developers, like us, in WS2 we have 23 products plus, so more than that, right? So we are creating softwares for another set of developers, not directly for the end users. So another set of developers will download that particular product and use it, and test it, and try to use certain parts from our existing products. So at that case, we need to think about this usability aspect and the experience. If someone knows the IBM products or the Oracle products, they probably expect same experience from the other products as well, because we are all in the middleware industry, right? So same thing applies. I don't know how many of you using Linux versions, Linux flavors, Ubuntu, any Kubuntu, Fedora, anything? Everyone using those flavors or few? Windows. How many of you using Windows? Okay. Luckily at that time we get used to some other softwares like open source softwares, right? So most of the Windows guys, and if they are going to try the Ubuntu flavors, they want to see the same dumb interfaces. Sorry for saying those are dumb, but yes, it is. So the Windows is developed for everyone, not for the specific people. But unfortunately, all these open source systems, operating systems developed by the highly technical people, and they are okay with those terminal interfaces. But now Ubuntu and some other flavors are getting much richer interface and stuff. Previously, it's just a console, terminal, nothing else. You have to type everything to do small stuff. But if you think about the Apple iOS or the Windows, right, you have great experience. Right? So if you are creating something to compete, if you are creating a software for some industry, existing industry, you need to think about the existing product, how they work, how they look like, how the experience of that particular product. Then you can realize how your product should be. Right? Otherwise you can't do a creative job, do a good design. Right? Without thinking about the existing product, you can't create the next level. Then you can identify all the bugs in the previous system and you can remove those in your system. I don't know how many of you experienced Windows 8 early editions. Windows 8 early edition? How many of you use that? Okay, there's a critical issue in shutdown. There's a no direct button to shut down Windows 8. You have to mouse on this left side, right hand side and find out something, some setting or something, and after that you can find out the shutdown icon. Right? It's a UX failure. Then people never shut down the machine, they just hibernate it because they can't do it. It's not there. People think it's not there. No shutdown option, like the Mac. Basically, Mac also promoting the kind of hibernation option, right? Sleep mode, not the shutdown options. Right? So after 8.1, they send the fix for that in Windows 8.1, showing the shutdown button on the top. Right? They got many complaints saying, okay, Windows 8 doesn't have a shutdown button. So they are doing many research to do something, right? Not unlike us, they do so many human researchers and many lab scenarios to do something, right? But even they had certain issues. So when you are creating a software, think about the existing one. Then think about the expectation. How people will expect certain stuff in my software. And if you can improve certain areas, do it. But there's another concept, conflicting concept as well. I'll explain that a little bit later. So usually people create a mental model, right? People create mental model, and mental model represent person's thought process for how something works. So there's another example, ebooks. So if you think about the book reading apps, probably in the Kindle Fire, or the something that you can install within your Android device or iOS device. So people try to show the same experience. Page turns away, right? So that experience is seen. So people always create mental model in their mind to identify how something works, right? So that's why most of the time some interface looks similar to the existing hard thing. Virtual things are similar to the tangible stuff, right? That because of the expectations and the experience of the people. But when you're creating something new, you need to think about this angle. At that time, Henry Ford, he's saying, if I had asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses. So those concepts are kind of contradictory, but you need to understand what's the real thing. Right? At that time, there's no motor coach, right? Nothing like that. Nobody can imagine it. If Henry Ford asked that question from the existing users, or if he checked the existing product, they want faster horses, right? So when you are creating something new for the users, then the approach may be a little bit different. But still you can apply the concepts, right? So when you are creating a motor coach, there's a seat, right? All cart also have the same comfortability, right? So certain things can be going forward, but the new features has to incorporate. And same thing happens when the Windows introduced this tile concept. That's a whole new concept, right? When the first time you're seeing all set of tiles, people feel crazy, right? But after some time, now they realize, okay, this is very convenient for the users, it's really easy to use it, then they get used to it, right? They create that touch screen not because of the existing user base, but they think about the touch screens. So most of the new device comes with the touch screen, right? So in the touch screen you can click on a small icon or see something. So that's why they implemented this block tiles, right? So everything has a concept. So when you are doing something, when you are creating something, think about that bit, concept, why we create it. Don't just put something. When lecturer is asking something on the presentation, give a solid answer. Don't just say, sir, we just add it, we need to add that confirmation button to show something. Don't say like that. Say a solid answer. Say, this is the reason. Due to past experience, user expects certain stuff like this. That's why we added this particular icon on this right hand bottom or the right hand top. Explain in that way. Then lecturers know, or anyone else, maybe your customer know, they know the concept. They think about the users. That's how they create it. Right? So that is really important when you are doing something. Okay. So let me explain another set of things that you need to know when you are doing something for the companies, basically for the customers. So every time user goal is user always wants something, right? User always wants something. They just want something. But if you think about the business aspect, every organization has reason for creating site or the application in first place. Most probably, typically it's money. There are only few organizations run on in some other ways, right? Probably on open source model or in different business model. But most of the 99% of the organizations or the companies, they think about the business aspect, right? So they might be brand awareness. It might be a brand awareness, or the getting new customers to the community, or the money. Different. Luckily, I can't see any T-shirts here. Usually, when you are going to any university or the organization, you can see many WSO2 T-shirts, right? So that's a good example for showing this user goal and the this business goal, right? Typically, any organization, they are giving some free ways to create their brand awareness, right? They want to give something to user to make the brand awareness. So probably make sometimes they have different angles, but usually it's a brand awareness, right? But users think it in a different way. User may think, okay, I'm getting a T-shirt if I go to this, participate to this conference, right? So at our time, we also think like that, right? But their angle is a little bit different. So every time when you create something for people, humans, users, right? We need to think about those two angles. How we are getting something for the organization. If it's a money, yes, we need to think about that. And the use aspect, what they really want. I'll take a real world example. We take example YouTube. So YouTube makes money via ads, right? We want to read all the stuff. So I'll show how they are showing ads. So user goal is to see the videos. See the videos, search videos, right? Streaming, maybe live events, right? So that is the user goal. You didn't want to see any advertisement. But that organization need to make money. How they are doing it? They are pushing the third-party advertisement on the screens, right? One way is you are getting something free advertisement, 2-second or 3-second maximum advertisement, and they are showing the skip button. And they are placing two placeholders like this, right hand side. So usually your user catch this path, F pattern and the Z pattern. There are another two concepts how people see the things on screen. Usually you looks it like F character or the Z zigzag, right? So that's why they are putting the advertisement on here. Probably you may automatically click it without knowing it. Or if you're trying to skip certain stuff, then you will get it on this, right? Sometimes you even want to pay attention to those advertisements but automatically they get clicks, right? And the text-based advertisement. So when you're creating certain software for the end users, think about that company angle. Think about the business angle. How they make profit from that particular software. You can't create 100% open source stuff. WSO2 can do that, but most of the organizations can't handle that, right? They have to pay salaries and they have to survive first, right? So you need to think about the monetization. How we are going to do the monetization. Then you need to find out the way how we treat users and getting money. So that is the important aspect. If you pop up just advertisement in the screen, what will happen? You will never go to that site again, right? Probably you may have experience mostly in the download side, free download side. If you go to that download side, there are so many download icons. You don't know what to click, right? So those are kind of negative patterns. So they are enforcing to do something else instead of the target, instead of the use target, right? So don't distract users, but think about the way how you can get benefited as well as the users. Both angles. So it has to be balanced. When you are doing something, when you are creating a mobile game, when you are creating a mobile application, don't put advertisement everywhere. Then definitely you will get a bad rating on your application. Most of the university students push the application into maybe Google Play or the iTunes, right? How many of you submitted any application to iTunes or the Google Play? No one? Okay. You have to do that, right? Then you can learn all those concepts. Right? They are given different options to show the advertisement. Then you can earn money from that, right? But at the same time, you need to give something useful for the users, right? Because that is the important part. Apply user experience into a particular product, there are different methodologies that you can follow. When you are applying user experience into a particular different methodologies that you can follow. When you are applying user experience into a particular product, there are different methodologies. Different organization follows different concept in different way, right? This is one approach. So I'll explain certain concept that you need to understand within this domain. So first one is identify the users. So in UX term we are saying personas. Identify the persona. So you may have seen many fictional characters. So as a similar way, when you are creating something, when you are designing a software, we categorize user into different personas. Actually, those are the usual users. In previous time, we just say users. We need to identify users, but in UX terms, we are saying personas. So this person, Alan Cooper, he identified this concept called persona. Actually, he is the father of Visual Basic, as well as he drives the extreme programming concept. Right? At that time, he came up with this concept called persona. So if I show the example, so this is a sample of persona. So in here, we identify a user, someone, probably any picture, doesn't matter, and we identify the features, characteristics, age, occupation, location, maybe expectations, and the goals here, expectations, frustrations, motivations, technology, and the personality. So different aspect. So depending on your project, you need to identify your persona. Sometimes it may be a one persona, sometimes it may be a multiple personas, multiple users, right? So you need to identify what are their goals. Specifically, you need to identify that first. So usually what happens is, if you are getting a project or something, we wait until the last week, and after that we will try to start. Then in the middle we get stuck and trying to get some help from the seniors or someone who expert in that area, and give something and submit as a final assignment. Right? But in industry, you can't do that because you are engaging with real customers, right? They are paying for it. Right? If you are not doing a good job, definitely you will kick off from that company. Right? So that's why you need to focus about the actual users. If customer gives a requirement, you need to clearly identify, okay, these are the users that particular software is going to use. Clearly define it first. So persona helps to identify these users. Then the persona is used to define the user goals and needs, giving design focus with a common understanding, and the identify opportunities and the product gaps, concentration on designing manageable targets who represent large groups. So everything matters. helping designers empathize with user, understand behaviors, motivations, and expectations. So most of the things are explained before, right? So you need to understand all this complete story. So then, with all that in mind, we need a sort of story. Remember the stories? When you are in childhood, you may have seen this sort of stuff. Now, if you are comic fans, right, you can read many comic books, right? Why we are looking into those stories? Probably in a graphical way sometimes. So, when you are creating a software, you need to understand the story, how people use it, how particular user, the persona, behaves within this particular system, the software that you are creating, right? To identify that, there's a concept called user stories. First you have to create the personas, and after that you have to create the user stories. So this is the one template for the user story. As a user, that user role, I want to do something, that goal, so I can get this outcome. So when you are creating something, when you are doing something, first you need to identify all the stories. So when you map all those stories into one workflow, you can do something. Example, if you are creating a user management system, right? Probably think about the student entering thing. So first you need to log in. So that's a one story. Then probably you need to click something and go to somewhere, some form, right? So in that story you can explain what are the things, user and the goal, why you are doing that. And these are kind of example user story cards. So there's a concept called user story cards. So you can simply mention, as a student I want to purchase a parking pass so that I can drive to school. So that is one user story, right? Then after that, you can back of the card, you can give prerequisites or the criteria that you are expecting, right? So there are so many softwares to do that, or else there are many templates, right? So when you are writing a story, you are giving just a scenario, use a story, and the criteria, expectant criteria, right? What are the prerequisites? So all those things have to be included within the user story. So if you collect multiple user story, right, you can map with the workflow. There's no correct definition. How you want to break into small pieces or the abstract level. So in UX world, we are saying epics. Epics is the abstract level of user story. It's a concept level, abstract level idea. When the epic breaks into different chunks, we say those are the user story. But again, user story doesn't have clear definition of how to chunk it, how to make it as a small piece, right? Depending on the scenarios, depending on how you use it, you need to define it. I'll take a real world example. If you are working at the company and you are working in the UX team, user experience team, you didn't want to have a small, in detail user story. Abstract level will enough. But the test team or the QA team, quality assurance team, they need to have the detailed level user story for writing test cases. How many have you guys written the test cases? Test automation? Okay. Then you need to understand how user will use it, right? Then you need to break into another set of pieces, right? So first you are defining user persona, then the user story. So if you think, okay, this is the same explanation, themes, epics, user story, and you can break even to tasks. So when you are writing the test cases. Okay. Then there's a concept called wireframing. So first you identify the whole story, right? Now you know what are the expectations from the users and their capabilities, and stuffs are clear, right? Now we are going to phase called wireframing, and there's another misconception within the industry. People will get confused with wireframing, prototyping, and the mockups. Right? There's issue on that. Most of the time, people think, okay, how many of you heard the mockups? Actually, I got invited to do a UX mockup session. That's how they mentioned UX mockup session. So if I did the UX mockup session, I won't teach any of these previous concepts. Because mockup is actually visual design, static representation of something. So I'll explain how it maps with this wireframe prototyping and the this mockup part. Okay, first I'll explain what is wireframe. So if you think about the wireframe, wireframes are the blueprints for the design. Blueprints, plans. So wireframe considered as a blueprint of design. And there are two aspects, low fidelity and the high fidelity wireframe. Right? So if I tell an example, this low fidelity wireframe may be just a sketch. So there are different terms, right? I'm telling multiple terms: sketching, wireframing, mockups, personas, user stories. So those are UX jargons actually. Right? Just jargons, don't worry much. So sketch wireframing, again, there's a conflict. Some say, okay, wireframe is a kind of clearly defined way of sketch. Yes, maybe. Sketch is probably a pencil sketch. When you are creating something, you probably sketch it, right? You draw something and find out, okay, how this interface or the software will look like. Right? So wireframing is the same thing, but using certain tools or the little bit high level, right? That's why categorizing two stuff, high, low fidelity and high level. So I'll show the example. So when you are creating a wireframe, you need to think about these angles. First one is the structure. How will the pieces to be put together? So if you are interfacing multiple stuff, you need to think about how those pieces will incorporate in one single screen. Then the content. What are things I want to show? Information hierarchy. How it organizes and how it looks like within display in the screen. Then the functionality and the behavior, how it interacts with the user. So when you are creating a wireframes, you need to have clear understanding about that. Right? You need to think a lot. If you are doing a UX, if you are willing to do a UX, definitely you need to have good brain. You need to have clear thinking process. You need to think about multiple approach and identify best alternative, best approach for doing something, best way of handling something. So there are so many tools that you can create wireframes. So at the same time, due to this industry names, people get confused with certain stuff. If you think about there are, to create wireframe, there are stencils. Remember the stencils? What do you call it? Stencils. So there are stencils available in the internet, or you can order from the eBay, right? UX stencils are there. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my one. So you can just draw the icons. Everything is there. If you want to have a button is there. rounded corners, yes. If you want to use a recycle icon, just draw it. So you can draw using those sketching icons, stencils. And there's options of paper cutouts. So there are printed papers like the iPhone models, and there are created prototypes, kind of options. I'll show the example later, okay? And you can use this as making wireframes. And these are the online tools, Ballsmake, Extra, Pencil, and the new tool Adobe Experience Design, right? So using all those tools, you can create wireframes. So Ballsmake is the most popular one. So that's why most of the people think mockups and the wireframes are same. Because most of the wireframe creating tools are named as mockups. But mockups are actually in between level within the wireframe and the prototype. Prototype is the actual working thing, right? Working something. How you can interact and see how it actually works. So that's the prototype. And the wireframe is just a sketch, right? How it looked like, and the information hierarchy and the flow of it. So mockup is the middle of it. In between. So probably in the mockups, people consider it as a static design of it. You need to, you can use the tools to create it, like Photoshop or some visual tool, right? And after that, you can put the colors, right? You can put the actual buttons and do it. So those are mockups, right? So these are some of the good resources that you can follow to identify some of the UX patterns and the wireframes that are available. If you go to this site, for UI patterns site, you can identify how they create the wireframe and how they convert that into the real actual website or the design. So you can write this down. I think just Google it UX pattern or something, then you can do that. So once you create a wireframe, next step would be do a kind of user testing. So wireframe testing. So there are so many tools to do wireframe testing, right? There are online resources, but in university or the small organization or even large organization do the same thing, right? They take a printout of the wireframes like this, and they do kind of split testing. Split testing is we are given two options: A/B testing, split testing. A/B means we are given two options and giving that to the users and explain the scenario. After that, we test in the different results. Right? Depending on the results, we can identify which is the best option to use. So when you are creating a software, think about multiple angles, think about multiple aspects, and create some alternatives. Right? When you're thinking about the alternatives, then you will realize, okay, there are some other ways of handling something. And once you create a wireframes and give it to user, they may say, okay, this is not the right way of doing it. They may expect something else. So usually what happens is we are creating everything and we put buttons, icons and finalize the project. Then we are giving that to the users. At that time it's too late. Industry, that's a waste of money and time. We can't waste like that. So when we are doing something, we gather all those information using personas, user stories and stuff like that. After that, we do a wireframing and test with the users. Probably this may be a sample user. For the existing product, this is for the new feature implementation. But for the existing product, you can do the real screen test or the eye tracking, click tracking. There are various options available to do the user research. If you Google UX user research, you can find out many information, right? There are tools to track your eyes. previously those are really highly expensive items. Now they are very cheap, right? Normal organization can afford it. And the click tracking is another option. So you can put their tracking code like the Google Analytics. How many of you know Google Analytics? Google Analytics is analytics options that you can get the user statistics by including their code. So similarly, there's an option called click tracking. Then you can identify, they will generate the heat maps, how user clicks on particular screen. So in this phase, you can do all those stuff. For the existing one, you can use the click tracking analysis and the eye tracking analysis, heat map generation, all those stuff, and find out how people behave in particular screen. If you are not getting sales, then you can realize, okay, what is the issue, right? So this is for the new products. If you are having a new product, then we can do this sort of wireframe testing and find out the best way. Then the rapid prototyping is another way. If you are developing mobile apps, you can do the prototype like this. You will create multiple screens in a one single strike, and you can give to the users. Then you can test it. If someone clicks on this button, then I'll move the stripe into that particular screen. So that's how normal organizations, small businesses, or the startups testing their apps, right? So you can do all those stuff in your labs very easily. Then you can realize, okay, this icon has to be placed in somewhere else, or you need to change the stuff. You can identify easily, right? So this is another good approach before you do something. Okay. So design is not just what it looks like and feel like. Design how it works. Design is how it works. Right? So you need to design the way how it works. So then it comes the visual design, mock-ups. Right? So we use the visual design terms, user experience design term instead of mock-ups. That's why I use the visual design here. So what happens is, this is just a wireframe. This is a wireframe that we built for the WSO2 cloud. We are offering cloud service for the application deployment. So in WSO2, we are having option called you can host your application on the WSO2 cloud for free, right? For that, we create this wireframe. And after that, the previous slide, this is how we test that. We took user sample and test with it, right? And after that, what happened is, we need to convert this wireframe into a visual design or the mockup. So this is a static one, but you can see almost everything that appears in the wireframe in visual way with original colors that we are going to place, right? This is the previous one and the design. So menu is hidden there, the icon is there, but so I'm not sure whether I have no. So this is the visualized version of it, right? So why we need this sort of mockups? If you are working in industry or for your projects, imagine if you create everything like without using tools, if you create by hand HTML, CSS, it will take longer time to do something. And someone, maybe your supervisor say, okay, this is not the right way of doing it, turn this icon to this place and move this here around, then you will be stopped, right? Because you can't do that. You have wasted almost 4 days to implement something, and after that, within 3 minutes or the 1 minute, instructor or your coordinator will say to change. How to do that? No way, right? Because you don't have time to do that. Again, same happens within the industry. Customer has the deadline, right? and the last movement we can change it. So if you follow the user experience and think about this kind of process, wireframing and then the mock-up, then you can realize wireframes, when you show those wireframes probably into the users, then you will realize certain stuff. Then if you push the mock-ups into the users, maybe to the customers, at that time they are saying, okay, I didn't want to have this block one here. We want to remove it. So this can be easily removed because this is just an image, static one, right? Just a Photoshop image. So we can just simply remove that layer. That's it, right? But if you create it as a prototype for the actual work, it's really hard to redo it. That is the importance of following certain flow or the process when you are implementing something or creating something. Okay. Then the tools. So you can use Adobe Photoshop. There's no alternative actually. GIMP is there, still in primary level. So if you need to create some professional level stuff, definitely you need to use the Photoshop. There are some online tools, but still offline Photoshop is the best one. And now they are offering monthly service as well. So for creating visual design, you can use the Photoshop. So Bracket, Sublime, Atom, there are many open source tools, right? Atom is free, Sublime I think it's license one, right? So you can use all those tools to create your next level, right? Okay. So when you are creating a software, you need to follow certain principles. Not all about the UX, it's all about the creating a better software. So design from outside in. What does that mean? Outside in, not the inside out. How you create the inside out software? Usually how you work within the existing projects. You guys did so many projects, right? How you create software? When you are getting assignment, first you think about the database, right? That's how you start. You first think about the database, right? And how it will relation with the other table, or how it store data, or the data types, all those kinds of things. So, sorry, that's not the way of doing it. Probably lectures may think a little bit different way, but this is the right way of industry experience. This is the industry experience, actually, right? You need to think about the other way around. Think about the experience first, what actually they want, and after that come into this phase. The end of the phase, then you can create the stuff. So that's why you say design from outside in. And reserve some time for research. Don't just start. If you are getting a project, if you are getting an email or saying, okay, you have a assignment to do, don't just start. If your customer saying, do something, don't just start. Do a research, right? Then you will understand what are things that you need to incorporate, and that requirement gathering phase is really important, right? Probably you may not recognize the real requirements. Their expectations may be a little bit different. That's why I'm always saying, do the user research. That is really important. Make time for the research. Then keep your hands off the keyboard, right? Stay away from the computers. Don't start coding, right? So first sketch it. Use a whiteboard. Use a pencil. Just use a A4 sheet. Do some sketches, right? Grab some personas. Identify the personas. Define the user stories. Then you can realize how to develop stuff. Then sketching. So try many things, keep none of them. So that's another concept. So when you sketch multiple times, then you will realize, okay, this is not the way of doing it. Then you will sketch another one. Then after one time, you may realize, okay, that's not the way of doing it. Right? That's why I say, try many things, keep none of them. No need to keep any of those. Create something depending on the experience that you get. Right? So finally, test designs on people. So before you code, test it. Right? So same concept that I explained all this 1.5 more than that hours. So you need to follow these principles to create something. Then when all else fails, now start coding. But usually we do the 6 first and the first one last. So that's why when you are adding something, every time you need to go to the database and that particular table and change it. Change maybe the char set or something. Right? Because you don't think about it. When you are creating just simple form, we'll take an example. Simple form, just creating fields. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, vacha something 50, okay, that's enough, and the next one, and the int, or something like that. Right? But after that, when you are entering some stuff, I didn't want to have int, I need a float number. So I can't do it. Then I need to redesign the database structure. Because you are not thinking it first. You are just coding it. Right? So change that mindset first. That will save your time and you can do much more creative and effective things hereafter. So make it or break it. So that's the last time. So do you guys need a superhero for this? No, right? So you have all the technical skills. Only lacking part is you don't think about the users. That is the lacking part. You know how to do this algorithms, you know how to do the perfect functions, you know how to write it optimal, memory optimal codes, you know how to do that. But you never think about the real users, who they really going to use it. Right? So first start from that. So then, why we need software engineers? Actually, the user experience for that. The first same concept. You are not like your target users. Target users are completely different. And again, the next concept. They are developing softwares for the humans. Technical skill, help in getting up speed and deeply technical applications. So that is there, right? So your job is not to optimize the developer's productivity, but rather to optimize the end user experience. That is another key concept. But for the certain companies, it will be different. WSO too, we need to think about the developer aspect as well. But in general, you need to think about the end aspect. So everyone is a UX engineer. As I mentioned before, all those examples that I've taken and shown in this presentation are taken from the general use cases, right? Nothing new. Gmail, YouTube, website, e-commerce sites, right? And almost all the things you have seen many times before. But you guys never think about in that way. That is the problem. So think your thinking pattern. Change your thinking patterns, then you will shift your mindset to focus on human-centered solutions. Then you can become a UX engineer instead of just UI engineer. Good luck, guys. Thank you very much. Do you guys have any questions? If you have any questions, I can answer. Actually, we can't teach UX within 2 hours. So basically every book is 24 hours course, right? Not 2-hour course. Visual Basic in 24 hours. UX, you can't teach within 24 hours even, right? But these are just concepts to understand certain aspects within the UX area and the industry practices, right? So if you have any question, you can drop an email to me. My email is dakshika@wso2.com or else dakshika@apache.org. So you can send an email to me, or else probably I'll be here sometimes around. If you have any question, you can ask. So usually you need to aware about certain stuff. Like most of the examples I have taken from some popular books available in UX industry. So there are certain blogs you can follow. So one good example is Medium. Medium having different channels on user experience. If you subscribe to you know Medium, right? Just Google Medium, then you can find out what it is. Just subscribe to the UX stuff, user experience. Then you find out many organizations has different feeds available on the Medium. And if you go to UX Pin is another good tool, and they have different resources available for the user experience designers and user experience people to follow. They are providing ebooks, and also there are certain UX courses available within Udemy. So if you go to Udemy courses, you can follow user experience HCI courses up there, right? So those are good resources that you can follow to understand the concepts. And there's another good site called Nielsen Group, NNN Group, Nielsen and Norman. So actually Norman is recognized as a kind of father of user experience, Don Norman. So he's having research company. They are doing many research on different user aspects. And so you guys can subscribe to their mailing list. Then you can receive, I think, weekly or monthly newsletters, right? So those are good resources that you can follow. Tools wise, for the wireframing and mockup, you can use the Photoshop, or the Buzzmig is available for open source projects free, right? Otherwise it's not free. And there's another site called Mockups. You can do the online wireframing. And Atom can be used to develop the stuff, right? So most of the Java developers get used to use the maybe IntelliJ IDEA or the NetBeans. I'm not sure what you guys following. So IDEA also having good plugins available for supporting this development and the stuff, right, for the development purpose. But IDEA is again not free. They have, I think, community edition, but community edition doesn't support for most of the plugins. So if you are involving in any open source project, probably you can get most of the softwares free. If you engage any Apache open source project, once you get as a committer, then you will receive Windows license free and the IDEA license free. Almost all the softwares you can download, and they will provide the open source license. So try to engage with some open source projects. So in WSO2, I think, yes, we have few people who work at WSO2 as internship, right? But try to join to the organizations like that, and then you can practice those stuff. In Sri Lanka, 99X, WSO2 companies, organizations like that, doing the UX within their organization. But if you think about the startups, they do almost everything. Then definitely you will get in touch with the concepts, but not in the very linear way, but you will ad hocly get some concepts when you are doing stuff, right? So there are so many startups that you can join. If you are starting your own organization, again, you can do that. I'm also previously did a startup. After that, I joined to WSO2. So then you can understand the customer requirement, user requirements, and do something. So that will make a huge change. Probably, I'm not sure whether we had the incubator program, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a course also on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
But some people can start.
Yeah.
Even some people do under the industrial placement also.
Cool.
Projects. They are all.
So that's a good opportunity. Guys, please use those opportunities. At that time, there's no such a thing. There's no courses like that at our time, right? But still, we get some help from our lecturers and do something, right? But now we are having an opportunity to do that. So think about this user angle, user perspectives, and user experience. So this is a very vast area, right? Nobody can say, okay, this is the end of the story, right? So there are so many concepts, so many theories, so many researchers. You need to read the research papers. Again, most of 4th years, most of the time you have to read, right? 3rd years they hate to read papers, but if you read research papers, most of the time Google do user experience related research, IBM do Google UX related research papers. So read those, then you can identify how they're doing actual test research for this certain identifications, right? Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for listening. If you have any question, you can ask at any time.